Right now, you can open up a conversational AI companion, tell it to act like a doctor, and ask for a medical license number, and the software will invent one on the spot. Recently, investigative reporters ran this exact test. They took prompts asking for medical credentials and ran them through 5 different companion chatbot platforms. Every single one confidently produced a fabricated Pennsylvania medical license number. When pressed on this, one of those vendors, Kindroid, went on the public record with an explanation. They stated that this output is not a software glitch. Because the user asked the AI to role-play as a physician, the platform was operating exactly as designed, no different than if the model had been prompted to invent a fictional story. Tech companies are shipping tools that intersect directly with highly regulated clinical professions. Yet they are operating under the assumption that they carry absolutely zero liability for the medical artifacts their bots generate. This open deployment is happening because the traditional checks on this behavior are completely paralyzed. In Washington, D.C., the federal regulatory apparatus is frozen. The FDA commissioner seat has sat vacant for dozens of days. The FTC launched a massive inquiry into major AI platforms hundreds of days ago and has produced no staff reports and no interim deliverables. The federal clocks are just running. The only recent federal intervention we've seen was an emergency Commerce Department export ban on a specific frontier model built by Anthropic. And that action wasn't the result of a rigorous strategic review. It was triggered by a single phone call from Amazon CEO Andy Jassy to the Treasury Secretary. That directive was issued a mere 36 hours later. It was drafted so hastily that former Commerce Department advisors are now publicly questioning whether the document is legally enforceable against the technology it targets. The AI industry has been waiting for a sweeping federal law to set the boundaries. While Washington stalls, a network of regional institutions and professional organizations has decided to stop waiting and write the rules themselves. The first major constraint closing in on these companies is the state court system, starting in California. The San Francisco Superior Court recently established what is called JCCP 5431. This is a newly coordinated legal docket that takes 13 separate lawsuits, alleging that chatbots foreseeably contributed to a user's death, and consolidates them under a single trial coordination judge. This structure forces AI builders into unified, inescapable legal discovery. Whatever safety guardrails these platforms had in place on the exact day of the named incidents will be aggressively scrutinized, deposed, and cross-examined in front of a jury. Tech vendors can no longer dismiss these tragedies as isolated user complaints. By managing this consolidated docket, state judges are actively constructing the legal liability framework that Congress has failed to deliver. The courts are only one side of the pressure. Over a span of just 8 days, the professional medical establishment abruptly dropped its neutral stance on artificial intelligence and published a definitive set of rules. This newly minted policy was adopted by both the American Medical Association and the American Psychological Association. They established a firm boundary. Clinical AI must be strictly assistive, not autonomous. The software supports the workflow, but the human physician retains sole authority over the final clinical decision. These organizations represent hundreds of thousands of licensed doctors, forging a unified professional consensus. This gives plaintiffs and state regulators a highly documented professional standard of care. If a rogue AI platform bypasses human oversight and acts autonomously, litigators now have the exact paperwork they need to prove that the company violated the licensed workforce floor. With the medical and legal standards locking into place, state legislatures are moving in to codify those boundaries into local law. In Hawaii, pending legislation mandates strict per-session disclosures whenever minors interact with an AI. It also legally requires these platforms to build in functional self-harm response protocols. The momentum is accelerating. Vermont has already signed a strict clinician-in-chair law enforcing human oversight. As of this summer, 5 other states have active, fully drafted AI regulatory bills sitting on their governors' desks awaiting signatures. There will be no neat, uniform federal framework. Instead, AI companies are walking into a punishing, unavoidable patchwork of aggressive state-level legal mandates. Surviving this environment requires a completely different approach to software design. Look at a platform called Grow Therapy and their recent rollout of a tool called the AI Coach. It is the exact engineering opposite of the dangerous companion chatbots generating fake licenses. This architecture operates in 3 layers. On layer 1, the AI interacts with clients between sessions. Authority moves strictly upward. In layer 2, a licensed therapist reviews the logs. In layer 3, the human clinician alone alters the treatment plan. The AI never adjudicates, the human does. This specific 3-layer software architecture perfectly satisfies the new clinical standard of care established by the medical associations and the state courts. The tech industry operated for years on the assumption that they could exist in a permanent, unregulated space. That assumption is now functionally dead. Builders are no longer fighting slow-moving federal watchdogs in Washington. They are facing a nimble, multi-front squeeze from state judges, medical boards, and local lawmakers who are tired of waiting. There's a stark contrast forming in the market. On one side, stubborn tech companies are publicly defending their platform's fabricated medical advice as a software feature. On the other, companies are actively embedding licensed human oversight directly into their code. Conversational AI companies have a choice. They must construct their products on this newly established restrictive floor, or they will be crushed by the institutional walls closing in around them.